afternoon and welcome to the Oldish Live. Welcome especially to our new viewers and welcome back to those who have been with us before. My name is Karen. I'm the publisher and editor of The Oldish, and we've been away for a couple of weeks. So we've been rejigging some of our tech, and probably nothing much that you'll notice, but it makes it a bit easier for us in the background. We have published a lot of articles in the couple of weeks we've been away, so I'm not going to list them all for you, but I am going to highlight a few. The focus of our Oldish Live broadcast today will be on aging in place. As I've been traveling around, it's a concern everywhere. It's not just here in North America. I've been in Europe. We'll talk about that in a moment. But first of all, let's get to some of these articles that I want to highlight for you. The number one article that I want to highlight for you is called Deaths from Falls Rising Steadily Among Seniors. Fall and injury prevention is something that has been a huge concern in my life for about 20 years now. It's been the focus of a lot of the work that I've been doing. As along the way, we've been expanding and dealing with issues around aging in place and what happens with families after death and so on, long-term care. I mean, there are so many pieces, but falls and injury prevention it's an area that is really crucially important because it's not a normal piece of the aging process, and so many falls are in fact preventable. But the statistics suggest that there has been an increase of 3% per year, which means that since 2007 there's been a 31% increase in the number of falls. So I was talking to one person about this and they said, well, there are more seniors, so of course there would be more falls. This is a percentage. This isn't a finite number. So no matter how many people there are, the percentage of those who are falling is increasing, and that's an enormous concern. It means for many people the difference between successfully continuing to age in place and needing interventions and help that may mean a loss of independence to a greater or lesser extent. It may also mean going into long-term care, which is something that, if it's not planned, can be very traumatic. So there are a lot of things you can do to prevent falls from happening in the first place. A lot of this information is on our website. Things like Tai Chi exercise, just exercise in general, getting out there and moving and not being stagnant in your home, taking a look at the safety in your own home. There's a home safety assessment on our website at theoldish.com. Now, you do have to be a member because many of these tools that are in the toolkit are requiring you to enter personal information. So you do need to have a membership with a password that you choose so that nobody can see it. We can't see it either, so don't worry about it. But there is a medicine checklist, for instance. We've talked about that often. For the purpose of this discussion, though, there are home safety videos if you prefer to see things, but there's a home safety checklist where you can take your smartphone or your tablet and you can go through your house room by room and answer questions very simply, yes or no. For everything that you answer no to, once you hit the submit button, it tells you how to turn it into a yes. So it will help you make your home a safer place for you to be. I really urge you to do this. Falls are a huge piece in being able to age either successfully or unsuccessfully. Another article that I want to draw your attention to is a statistic that was done with regard to telemedicine. They're saying that more and more seniors are receptive to it. Now, partly that is, of course, that as we age, we're taking our technological skills with us. So the idea of telemedicine is increasingly less foreign to us. But it is something you have to advocate for because the doctors don't always seem to be catching up with us, particularly in rural areas, though. This is something that is becoming essential. It really is becoming an essential service. I know at the hospital where I live, they have just made a determination that having a dedicated OTN room, which is Ontario Telemedicine, room outfitted with all the gear is something that they're going to do very soon. They're going to start building it. So they've devoted the money to it and they're going to do it. Many hospitals in larger centers already have telemedicine rooms that are specifically designated. So this is really great because it means that as a patient of any age, really, you can go into one of these telemedicine rooms with a caregiver. Oftentimes it's a nurse or a nurse's aide who is required to manipulate some of the equipment, put on a blood pressure cuff, for instance, that kind of thing. But you can also go in there with your own doctor and connect to a specialist who may be across the city or across the world. You don't know. Well, I'm sure your doctor knows, but the point is that you get to consult and connect with people who are specialists in the kind of medicine that you need at that moment. Here in Ontario, the OTN network allows patients in their own homes, as long as they have a smartphone or a tablet or a computer, it allows them to connect with, at the moment, specialists, but very shortly, I am led to believe within 8 or 9 months, this service will be available to family medical practitioners as well. So you'll be able to be in your home, picture this, in the dead of winter in northern Ontario, and have a doctor's appointment with your doctor. For the doctors, hopefully they're going to be agreeable to this because they get to actually charge the Ontario health plan for the service, plus an extra fee for the OTN connection. So for them, they get to bill basically the same kind of amount. And for you, you get to stay at home. For your adult children who may have had to take time off work to come and get you and take you to an appointment, they don't have to do that anymore. You're in your own home. It's wonderful. It is an absolutely wonderful service. But I absolutely encourage all of you to advocate for these telemedicine services, no matter where you are. Ask your doctor what's available. Ask your doctor if he or she participates. If they don't, ask your doctor when they will participate, because this is not only a time saver, but it's a stress saver too. It's a lot of energy for a senior to get up and ready and prepared for these doctor visits, and then to come home and decompress from what may have happened. So if you can do it from the comfort of your own home, more's the better. What's wrong with any of that? So more and more seniors are receptive to this. Advocate for yourself, and hopefully your doctor will be receptive to it as well. As many of us are in the throes of heat waves, some of us already have been, some of us have yet to be, but the summer is far from being over, so we will be at some point. Summer heat can trigger AFib. So you need to be aware of that. If you are feeling some issues with your heart, if you have a senior who is at home and is known to have issues with their heart, please check on them. Let's make sure that this doesn't lead to something worse. Recent onset diabetes linked with prostate cancer. This is a relatively new thing. Or sorry, not prostate cancer, pancreatic cancer. Sorry. This is a relatively new thing, that diabetes should be connected with pancreatic cancer. But as you may know, pancreatic cancer is one of the more serious kinds of cancer. And if there is any history with you with diabetes and pancreatic cancer, I urge you to read this article and see if there's something there that triggers a question in your mind that you may need to go to your healthcare provider with. Do that. The American Cancer Society has lowered the age when screening should begin for colon cancer. Now, not so long ago, we did this whole thing on the oldish, actually a couple of different broadcasts where we talked about colon cancer. We posted on our Facebook page a gastroenterologist who underwent a colonoscopy and broadcast it on Facebook Live. So we shared that. We had conversations with him. We talked about colon cancer and how it is a highly preventable form of cancer. But now the American Cancer Society is lowering the age, which was 50 when normal screening should start. They've lowered it to 45 years of age. As was the case when the age was higher, If you are an African American, an Alaskan Native, or have a family history, that screening needs to start even sooner. So now that the age has been lowered to 45, you should be checking with your doctor if you fall into any of those other groups and see when the screening should start. It may be that you need to start screening at the age of 40. That's not a part of the recommendation. It just says earlier if you're an African American, Alaska Native, or have a family history. So please do check on that. Go to theoldish.com and you can catch up with all of our articles and see what we've been up to for the past couple of weeks. So for the past couple of weeks when we've been off, I've been in Italy. I've been vacationing, certainly, but I have also been having a lot of really interesting conversations with people, primarily about aging in place, because it can be very different. Now, curiously, when I was even in the airport, you have to get to the airport so early now when you're on an international flight. 3 hours was when I had to get to the airport by. So I was sitting around talking, and people start to talk about what you're doing and where you're going and what you do in your regular life. And it's interesting. As soon as people heard that I was the publisher and editor of The Oldish, they start talking about their own concerns about getting older, the concerns that they have with looking after their aging parents and grandparents and aunts and uncles, the concerns that they have about living in their communities and how age-friendly they are or are not. So the discussions are always really fascinating. The particular city that I went to was called Positano. It's on the Amalfi Coast. For those of you who don't know Positano, it's a vertical town. So picture a soup bowl cut in half. This town is built into mountains. It's absolutely gorgeous. Everybody who lives there eventually develops knee and hip problems because it stairs everywhere. There's only really one street that goes through Positano, but there are stairwells everywhere, and they're named just as though they were streets. Fascinating. Elderly people whose families live in Positano, for the most part, stay in their own homes. I am led to believe that in Italy, in the larger cities, things are run not much differently than we run things here in Canada or in the States. In the cities, the long-term care facilities and nursing homes for seniors are well used, and they certainly have those in Italy as well. However, I'm told that in Positano, it is quite normal for aging seniors to employ caregivers to look after everything. So here in Ontario, we depend on the government more so to provide the services that we need, and we might access services, a wide variety of services: personal care, laundry, meals, house cleaning, grass cutting, and so on. In Positano, this one person who is employed looks after everything. There's not much grass to cut, but they look after everything. They stay with the person, they look after all of their needs, the shopping, the meal preparation, getting them dressed, the laundry, everything. So they have pretty much taken charge of their own aging process in a way that we tend not to do here. We tend to depend on our government to provide certain services, and then families and friends fill in the gaps. So a slightly different way of doing things. How we do it is the considerations really are more around families that are dispersed geographically and families that are raising their own children, not to mention the fact that many of our aging seniors have adult children who are themselves aging seniors and unable to deal with many of the more physically labor-intensive chores that need to be done. Think of lifting a senior into a shower, for instance, or helping them get dressed where you have to bear some of their body weight. That is really quite dependent on the ability of the caregiver. So a lot of key considerations that they have. I think the good news really, not in terms of travel, but in terms of a study that was done here in the States, we have a large fear around dementia. But a study that was done recently in the US says that Americans 65 years of age and older are showing less cognitive impairment. 20 to 25% of seniors age 65 and older have some mild cognitive impairment. Only 10% have full-on dementia. That's really good news. Think about that. Everybody, I would say almost 100% of people are frightened of dementia. Only 10% will actually be challenged by dementia as they grow older. I think that is really good news. That is incredibly good news. Smaller community-based projects are popping up here and there to help with various and sundry things related to people aging in place. I found a news story recently about something happening in Guelph, Ontario, which is in southwestern Ontario. There's a university there as well, but this is not a university program. This is a program called the Bench Project. And the Bench Project is designing senior-friendly benches with seniors in mind in terms of height, materials, and color. Now, one of them has been installed at this point. Ultimately, 16 of them will be installed. And this is a partnership between the Guelph Community Foundation and Community Foundations Canada to have these benches built and installed. But the idea of this is to encourage seniors to be out more, to get outside. And of course, one of the considerations is the distance that a senior can easily walk before needing to sit down and take a rest. It's one of the things that age-friendly town projects are taking a look at, because oftentimes you can go 2 and 3 blocks before you find a place where a senior can sit down. So this project aims to counter that by providing these benches that are built specifically to the needs of seniors. So good on you, Guelph. So there isn't a coordinated approach by any means. Community groups are doing what they can to fill in gaps that they identify that are within the parameters of their interest range. So the interest in aging in place that the Oldish has is going to continue. I am becoming increasingly interested in the multifaceted issues around aging in place, but we want to hear from you. We want to hear from you about your concerns about aging in place. What components are you finding difficult to access to help you age in place more successfully? What are your challenges? What are your fears? How are you pulling the pieces together? Is family helping, or are you on your own? Is your community involved in this? Are they slow on the uptake, or are they speeding along and getting things done in your specific community? I'd like to know all of that. It's a difficult issue to wrap our heads around, and it's happening at various times, at various levels, in different places. So I would very much like to have your input. I want you to leave comments below on our Facebook page. If you're viewing this video later on our YouTube channel, then leave those comments below on our YouTube channel as well. And we'd like to kind of gather these comments and concerns. We can try to address some of them in future broadcasts. But we can also address them in terms of the articles that we publish and the research that we do. So definitely get in there and have your say. So that is it. That is all for today on the Oldish Live. I thank you for taking part in this, whether you are viewing it live or viewing it later. We're always happy to have you here with us. Please remember, we are here every Wednesday. We're back on our regular schedule now. It does indeed take a village to age a senior, so take care of each other and take care of yourselves. Thank you, everyone, and we'll see you next time.